Hi, welcome to Phoenix Fire Gaming. I'm Carl, and today we're going to learn how to play the lighthearted family game, Please Don't Burn My Village. Now, I know that doesn't exactly sound like a family game based on the title, but this game takes place in the Castle Panic world, so it's got that same family-friendly, lighthearted feel to it as all of the other games you'd expect from Fireside Games. This game has been designed by Simon Weinberg, his first of many games coming out, and is published by Fireside Games. So, in Please Don't Burn My Village, there's an angry dragon nearby that wants to burn all the neighborhood villages. But, lucky for us, dragons are very greedy creatures. So, over the course of the game, we're going to be playing treasures down in front of us in an attempt to raise the value of the treasures we think the dragon will want the most. At the same time, we'll also be buying new treasures from the black market and devaluing other treasures in hopes that by the end of the game, our treasure trove that we're offering to the dragon will be valued at the highest. And at that point, if our treasures are valued the highest, we win the game and the dragon has spared our village and he burns the rest to the ground. So in this game, you have to bribe the best or burn. So at this point, let's jump in and learn how to set up. First, place the board in the center of the table where all players can see it. The board is divided into two distinct areas. This top section, which shows the dragon's favor, which is ranked from 1 to 4, and the bottom of the board features the black market, with costs that vary from 3 down to 0. The deck of cards in Please Don't Burn My Village features these 6 separate treasure types, as well as a 7 style card, which is a wild card. Depending on the number of players, you're going to remove a set number of wild cards from the deck to correspond with the number of players that you're playing. We are going to set up for a 3-player game, so we're going to remove 7 wild cards from the deck. With the necessary wild cards removed, you're going to shuffle the rest of the wild cards in with the 6 different types of treasure cards, and that's going to create our draw deck. You're then going to deal out 7 cards to each player, and that's going to be their starting hand for this game. You keep the cards in your hand secret, but everybody does get to know how many cards you have in your hand at all times. Next, you're going to mix up the 6 treasure tokens, and you're going to randomly place one of them underneath each shield in the dragon's favor track until we have 1 treasure underneath each shield. Then you're going to take cards from the top of the draw deck and place it underneath each of the black market stalls until all of the spaces are filled, leaving the deck nearby to form a draw deck, as well as leaving a space for a discard pile. Finally, the player who has most recently put out a fire is the first player. Or, as I like to do it in my house, the greediest player goes first. So, now you know how to set up Please Don't Burn My Village. Now, let's jump into learning how to play. The game is played over a series of turns where each player is going to take one of 3 different actions on their turn. The first action we'll cover, and arguably the most important, is bribing the dragon. Bribing the dragon has 3 steps to it: bribing the dragon, gaining the dragon's favor, and then resetting the black market. To bribe the dragon, you're going to select one or more matching treasure cards from your hand, laying them down in front of you, creating a bribe pile. If you don't have any of those treasures in front of you already, this is considered making a new bribe. So in this instance, we can take these 2 phoenix feathers, lay them down together in front of us to create our first new bribe. We could also include this wild card when we lay down these cards, and this wild card would be considered a phoenix feather. When creating a new bribe, it's important to know that you can't take a wild card and put that down by itself, calling it the treasure type that you'd like. This wild card always needs to be accompanied by other treasure cards, and in this instance, it's considered the type that you play it with. Alternatively, when making a bribe, you can add to an existing bribe. So in this instance, let's assume that on a previous turn, we've played these 3 phoenix feathers in front of us. So now on our turn, we can add to this existing bribe by taking the 1 phoenix feather from our hand and adding it to this pile. Now, since we have an existing bribe on the table, we can actually play these wild cards from our hand onto these existing Phoenix feathers without having to add another treasure card with it. Since we've already established the treasure type on the table with these Phoenix feather cards, we can play these wild cards by themselves onto this pile, adding as many as we'd like to it. Of course, you can also include the Phoenix feather with them if you'd like. So for our first turn, let's assume we played these two Phoenix feather cards down together to form our first new bribe, and we're going to save this wild card for later. So again, to reiterate, when making a bribe, your treasure types always need to match. And when making a new bribe, you can't play these wild cards by themselves. But when adding to an existing bribe, you can play wild cards down alone onto that existing pile. Now that we've made our bribe, it's time to move on to step 2, gaining the dragon's favor. You're going to take the treasure token that matches the type that you've played and move that one space to the right for each card that you've played, including your bonus cards. So in this instance, since we played 2 cards, we're going to take this Phoenix Feather token and move it 2 spaces to the right. Each token that we displace moves down in value, making room for our new Phoenix Feather. Now our Phoenix Feather is considered to have a value of 3. Let's look at another example. You can bribe the dragon with as many treasures as you want. So we could play 6 treasure cards if we want to. And in this instance, we're just going to move the Phoenix Feather as many spaces as we can to the right. Since there's only 4 spaces, although we've played 6 cards, it's just going to stop at 4. Again, making each of the other treasures decrease in value along the way. The third step is refilling the black market. You're going to take cards from the top of the draw pile, adding them to each of the black market stalls. You're always going to start with market stall 3 and work your way down progressively into each of the lower market stalls. You're going to continue flipping cards until you reach one that either matches the treasure type that you've played this turn or a wild. And in that instance, you stop refilling the market. If, while refilling the market, you make it all the way to the 0 stall and still haven't played a card that matches the treasure type that you played this turn, start back over at the level 3 stall and keep laying cards into each of the black market stalls. You're going to continue this until you finally hit either a wild or the type of treasure that you played this turn. So you may end up playing a lot of cards to the black market on a single turn. Always remember, if you make a bribe, you have to fill the black market. If, while filling the black market, you run out of cards in the draw deck and can't play another card because you haven't matched your treasure type yet, that triggers the end of the game. Now, we'll go over endgame scoring in a bit, but for now, let's jump over and learn the other 2 actions you can take on your turn. The second action you can take on your turn is visiting the black market. And visiting the black market is played in 2 steps. Step 1 is buying treasure cards. To buy cards from the black market, first decide from which stall that you want to make your purchase from. Then you're going to discard a number of cards from your hand equal to the cost shown above the black market. In this instance, we want to buy these cards from this black market stall with a 2. Then you're going to discard cards from your hand equal to the value of the black market stall you want to purchase from. So in this instance, we're going to discard 2 cards from our hand. And the 2 cards don't need to match. As a matter of fact, you could even discard a wild card if you wanted to. These 2 cards are going to go into the discard pile, and you only have to show the top card. Now that we've discarded that card, now that we've discarded these 2 cards, we can take these cards from this stall and add them to our hand. The second step of visiting the black market is to curse the treasure. So, since we've put the scroll on the top of our discard deck, we're going to devalue the scroll by 2 steps. Again, since we discarded 2 cards. So we're doing the opposite of what we did when we bribed the dragon. So this treasure is now going to go down 2 steps, with the other tokens moving up to make room for it. A few important things to note: that you do have to take all of the cards from the black market stall that you choose to pick from. You can't just take some of the cards. And here, this black market is valued at 0, so you don't have to discard any cards to take these cards from the stall. And you can only discard up to the value of the black market stall that you want to purchase from. So at most, you'll only ever be discarding 3 cards. You can't discard as many as you want. And just like when we're bribing the dragon, if you can't devalue the scroll far enough, say you've discarded 3 cards for this scroll and you can't move it 3 places to the left, you just move it as many spaces as you can. Remember, every time you buy a treasure card, you must curse a treasure token. You can't curse a treasure token without buying cards. The last action you can take on your turn is simply drawing 1 card. You'll draw 1 card from the top of the draw pile and add it to your hand. The game ends immediately when that treasure deck is empty, when you go to play another card to the black market, or if you have to draw a card. And again, you're just going to launch right into the game end. Now, don't score your cards yet, because you've got one last opportunity to get cards from your hand onto the table. Once the end of the game is triggered and before scoring, you have an opportunity to play treasure cards from your hand. Now, you can only play those treasure cards as long as you have matching bribes on the table. So in this instance, we're allowed to put these 2 axes and this 1 ice sword into our existing piles. But since we don't have a pile of this phoenix feather or this potion, these need to stay in our hand. We're also not allowed to play this wild card at the end of the game. You held it too long and now you're stuck with it. And finally, let's talk about how to score. After you've played all the remaining treasure cards that you can from your hand, you launch right into endgame scoring. Now, each treasure card in a bribe pile in front of you is going to be valued based on the token on the dragon's favor track. So each piece of treasure is going to gain you points based on its position on that track. Any bonus cards that are lumped in are considered the treasure type that they're bundled with. If you have any wild cards left in your hand, those are considered minus 2 points each. And then finally, for every treasure card that's left in your hand, you're going to lose points based on that treasure's position on the dragon's favor track. So let's look at these 2 players as an example. The player here on our left has played 5 axes, which are valued at 4 points each, getting him 20 points. He's also played 3 ice swords, valued at 2 points each, for a total of 6 points, and 2 of these magic scrolls at 2 points each for another 4 points. Now he got stuck with this feather and this potion in his hand, so he's going to lose 3 points each for each of those cards, as well as lose an additional 2 points for the wild card in his hand, losing him 8 points total. So this player has scored 22 points. Now, our second player here on the right has been able to play 8 ice swords, but since they're only valued at 2 points each, this pile is only 16 points. The crowns are only worth 1 point each, so this is only 3 points. And finally, another 3 points for this single phoenix feather. He was left with a magic scroll and an axe in his hand, losing him a total of 6 points, leaving him with a total of 16 points. Once you've added up everyone's bribes on the table and subtracted the cards that they've left over in their hands, the player with the highest total is the winner, and their village is spared from the dragon. Now, if there's a tie, the player who played the most of the highest valued treasure card is going to be the winner. Now, if there's a tie, you simply look at the second highest valued treasure and work your way down until somebody wins the game. And now you know how to play Please Don't Burn My Village. I hope you guys enjoy the game, and I hope you are the best at bribing and you don't get burned. If you find this video helpful, please give us a like, and of course subscribe if you want to be notified when more of these tutorial videos come out. Thanks for watching.